All right, are we live? Are we here? Do we have an audience? We're ready to go.
Yes.
All right, my name is Steve Doran, and you might notice that there's only 3 of us here tonight. Mike is out investigating his feminine side. We don't know what that means. All we know is that's what he's doing tonight, and so we're left alone. To my left is Dr. Brooks Agnew, one of the smartest people that I know on the planet, also probably one of the nicest people. He could be the stupidest bum in the world, and I would still love him because he is one of the sweetest, nicest people you will ever meet in your life. Below that is our captain for this evening, our Captain Kirk of the starship Toxically Masculine, Blake Walley. He's running the program. He's got all the clips. He's running all the electronics, the voice stuff, everything else. So without further ado, we're going to let Blake take it with the first story.
Okay, where to begin? I guess
and
we
to the
should,
audience, I forgot, to the audience, we love you. Big.
Well, I guess we're going to start with the old SpaceX since they just did the launch, and Dr. Brooks, also the birthday boy today.
39 years old. 39 years old today.
Congratulations, Dr. Brooks. It's great everyone to have you
45.
here. And I guess we're missing Captain Mike today, but we're going to keep rolling. The show must go on. So today we got the SpaceX Starship Flight 9 launch. So Dr. Brooks, you said you were going to watch this. I'm just curious how close we are. This is going to be like a big test for multi-planetary travel.
Well, it was a big test for sure. The booster, everything worked like clockwork until they got up to about 160 kilometers. The booster behaved as it was supposed to on the way up. They decided to test some high attitude re-entries with the booster and do some engine tests. They had tested it many times in the wind tunnel, and it held up. But this was the second launch for this booster. It's going to be the final one for this booster. And it did not hold up to the stress, and it spontaneously disassembled. So, in other words, it exploded. And then Starship was looking wonderful, absolutely wonderful, in very low Earth orbit, heading for the Indian Ocean. They tried to open the cargo doors to deploy some fake Starlink satellites, just as kind of exercise. Those satellites were going to burn up in the atmosphere. But the door did not open, and they ended up having a leak. And when they leaked, they lost a lot of the fuel they need to control the attitude of Starship, and it began to spin. And that spin continued until it also disassembled.
Well, that does not sound good, but at least I guess it was unmanned. Maybe a little setback here before we're off to send these.
You got to test things to make sure that they work correctly, and sometimes you got to push them to their limits to make sure that when you do have humans inside, that they're safe and get to their destination.
Yeah, because they're planning on a big expedition to Mars at some point, and then they're going to have like regular, transportation to be sent out there for supplies and everything. It's going to be.
We're going to start with the moon. They'll start with the moon first.
Yeah.
I want to go to the moon. I want to see what's going on up there. I was going to ask Brooks. I don't know if this is total baloney or not, but supposedly the Chinese have been experimenting with DNA. And they have been injecting DNA in human beings that will allow them to get involved or take extremely long space flights. They're not susceptible to cold, heat, radiation, et cetera, et cetera. Is that true?
Well, yes and no. I mean, they have been experimenting that way, but they still can't withstand long radiation or extreme cold unless they have a lot of natural body hair. But one of the things that that humans are susceptible to is called atrophy. And that is if you're weightless for a long time, the body naturally starts leaching calcium from your bones because you don't need them because you're weightless. That's why astronauts have to exercise every day. They actually have to do resistance exercises every day. And still, when they come back after 4 months, they can't walk. They have to go through rehabilitation to get back on their feet. So that's why building a colony on the moon is so important, because even though it's 1/6 gravity, it is some gravity. So it doesn't mean that you will atrophy, because instead of picking up a 100-pound sack of flour, you're now picking up a 600-pound block of steel, which weighs the same amount. So you still get the resistance training. The only thing that will suffer actually is the operation of your organs, because your organs do rely on you getting up, walking around and moving and shit for stuff to move through your guts. And it doesn't work so well in microgravity, and we have never tested that.
So you would basically have to have something like they use at the hospital to pull the doo-doo out of their rectum.
Ooh,
while they're up there.
Sounds bad. Well, fortunately, that probably works pretty well because of the sphincter action in the bowels. But I'm talking about blood movement, because in our arms and legs we have one-way valves, and so the blood is pumped against gravity, and those valves open. And then when the heart relaxes, those valves close, so the blood kind of steps its way up the legs to get back to the lungs to get reoxygenated. In zero gravity, those valves stop working, so the blood can just go either way, and it's difficult to keep your blood oxygen content up. So that would probably take some genetic modification. Whenever I'm in very, very low oxygen situations, like at 20,000 feet, we take Diamox. Diamox helps your body assimilate or get rid of CO2 a lot easier.
Yeah, I've taken that before. It made me sick as a dog. I had the worst migraine. I don't have migraines, and I had the worst migraine headache I ever had in my entire life.
And if you drink any kind of carbonated beverage, Coke, beer, anything, it all tastes like Alka-Seltzer. It totally screws with your body. But if you can take Diamox, you can function just fine at 18 to 20,000 feet. I've done it for long stretches.
Yeah, not me. I did it for a short stretch, did what I had to do, got the hell out of there, never took it again. It was horrific. It wasn't while I was there. I didn't have any issues while I was up at altitude. After I got down, after I started getting lower in altitude is when the headache hit.
Yeah. Well, I did 6 weeks of speed bike training before I went, so I was in great shape when I went.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, Blake, next story.
I was going to say a quick question here from Brian Engelman here, and I've heard these rumors too, is that China's working on something on the dark side of the moon, and we don't know what they're up to. I don't know if you know something about that, Brooks. Yeah.
They don't publish much, but they have had an operation on the far side of the moon for a couple of years. Not many nations have successfully landed remotely on the moon. Intuitive Design has tried it twice, failed twice. Indians tried it once, they failed. It is not easy to do, but the Chinese have managed to do it on the far side of the moon. They've had a rover. The Chang'e 9, I think, is what it is, and the rover is called Jade Rabbit or something like that. Both operated optimally. They went through several lunar nights and survived, and they got some great information on the far side of the moon. And China is absolutely kicking our ass with respect to data from the moon.
So why aren't we, as a nation, sending rovers up there to gather information?
because we don't have a national interest in it. We haven't had a national interest in it in probably 16 years, all the way through Obama, all the way through Biden, the first 4 years of Trump. We just didn't have a national interest in the moon. What really started the national interest was a kind of a failed mission, or a reassigned mission we had in 2006 called LCROSS. LCROSS was a spectrometer that was sent to orbit around the moon and sample the lunar atmosphere. And it was supposed to give us spectrographic analysis of the atmosphere. Well, the retro system, the system that keeps it in orbit, had a leak, and the orbit was going to decay, and it was going to crash into the moon. So the team got together and reassigned the whole program. And what they did is they blew the spectrometer and the rocket sections apart. So they're now two separate sections. We have exploding bolts in these, so we can pop them into small pieces. So if they come back and re-enter Earth's atmosphere, they burn up successfully. They don't come down as one big assembly. So they blew the bolts, separated the two components. They dropped the rocket engine down onto the moon, and then they chased it with the spectrometer. So the rocket engine hit this crater and created this huge plume, probably 20,000 feet into the air. We took a picture of it from Earth, but it was too far away, and we couldn't get a spectrographic analysis of it. The angle of the light was bad, and we just couldn't tell what was in it. But when the spectrometer flew through the plume, it gathered all that information, analyzed it, sent it to Earth, and then it crashed into the moon. Well, that information from that failed mission is what started this gold rush, because that crater was full of frozen water ice and helium-3, both of which are valuable fuel sources on the moon. So that started the gold rush. Everybody since that LCROSS mission has been racing to get to that crater.
Well, I think we should be doing more to get up there and figure out what's going on. Now, why can't people like Elon Musk and SpaceX send rovers up there?
Well, they can, but that's not what SpaceX is about. SpaceX is about supporting the Gateway and the Artemis projects. So there are other companies. One is called Rocket Labs. There's another one that just recently I found out about called Gravitics. They're not publicly traded. Rocket Labs is, but Gravitics is not. And they're making a space carrier. So that this carrier will actually take dozens or even hundreds of satellites into orbit and store them. And so if we need to deploy them, it opens and deploys the satellites. So it's kind of like an aircraft carrier in space. The reason these things are needed is because we have to set up a GPS system around the moon. We don't have one. Right now we use the GPS systems around the Earth to navigate the moon. That's why it's so shitty. That's why we crash into it all the time. If we had GPS satellites around the moon, then we could remotely land stuff on the moon all the time. Well, we need this Gravitics craft to get those satellites to the moon and then deploy them, so that we have a cloud of GPS satellites around the moon. And that's just step one in building a lunar colony. And really what happened was when Trump became president the first time, he wiped a bunch of regulations out of the way that let private industry get into the space industry directly. And we're seeing the fruits of that right now.
That's awesome. Blake, back
Absolutely.
to you.
Okay, well, that's quite fascinating here. The our future.
You know,
of
all you got to
humanity.
do, if you don't know about something, just call Brooks and ask him. He's got.
There you go.
Before Google, I am. And I'm not going to hold anything back. If you ask me, I'll tell you.
All right, very good. All right, well, we've got a lot of topics. How about what is the latest going on with Trump and Ukraine, Putin? Perhaps setbacks with the peace negotiations going on, as Trump may cut losses in Ukraine and abandoning the failed peace plan after the war ramps up. He even called Putin crazy, but maybe he wasn't factoring in the helicopter attack. Apparently, 46 drones from Ukraine attacked Putin's helicopter, which they fended off. But now that really aggravated him, and he's amassed 50,000 troops on the border, getting ready to escalate things.
Well, the problem with the Ukraine is they're threatening everybody. If you don't agree with the Ukraine, they're threatening you, and they're going against you. There's no way that they can win this thing. There's no way that they can come out on top. And the reason is, you don't threaten potential allies. You don't go after people just because they criticize you. And they're just doing let's face it, the guy who's running the country is a cross-dressing comedian. He has no idea how to deal with his foreign allies.
Yeah, and the news leaves out a lot too, because if you just step back a few days, what happened was Ukraine launched a massive drone attack, a massive one, and it even went all the way to Moscow. There were so many drones that they had to cancel air flights because the airways were so congested with drones, they couldn't safely fly. So Putin responded by launching everything they had, except for the hypersonic missiles. And they just beat the shit out of Kiev, just blew it to crap. People were hiding in subways and shelters. Fortunately, less than a dozen people died on both sides from all of this drone activity. And it's just been ramping up ever since. And right now, Blake's right, or Steve's right, they're amassing 50,000 troops on the border. This doesn't mean much because there's already like 275,000 troops inside of Ukraine. But if Putin wanted to, they could ramp up in a hurry and just take it all out. What they're
they could
really
decimate the Ukraine within a matter of hours.
Yeah, what they're really hoping to do, and I don't think they're going to be successful at doing it, is they're trying to get Putin to do something that brings NATO in. They're trying to get something to leak over the border, and Ukraine may do it on purpose. They may blow up something, and have it go over the border into Poland or something, which is a NATO country, and that would trigger Article 5, and then NATO could come in. Right now, NATO can't legally fight in this battle. This is between Putin and Ukraine.
So what do you think would have happened had Ukraine been successful in taking down Putin? Would he be replaced with somebody more reasonable with the West, or somebody even less restrained?
Oh, yeah. There are 5 layers of bad guys. There's Medvedev, there's Lavrov, there are 2 or 3 other generals that I could name right now that are way more aggressive than Putin is. Putin is at least diplomatic. He at least looks at the world through a picture of peace and balance. Not these guys.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, hopefully they can figure something out, but we might be walking away from the peace talks for a while.
Well, the best thing that the Ukraine could do would be to meet with Putin, set a peace deal, and move on. There's no way for them to win. Even if NATO comes in, none of the Russians are afraid of NATO. None of the Russians are afraid of attacking NATO should they come in and get involved. So all they're going to do is create a bigger mess. The best thing to do is go back to the peace talks, get things settled, get it over with, be done with it.
I think Putin would go for peace if Ukraine would quit attacking Russia, but they're not going to.
I believe so.
Victoria Nuland and Jake Sullivan and
these guys, I wouldn't. If I had a country and you kept attacking me, I wouldn't go for peace either.
Right. Yeah. And of course, the terms they come back with are very Arafatish in the sense that they say, okay, we agree to a ceasefire if you pull all your Russian troops out of Ukraine and give us the land back. That's not a point of negotiation. No. You're not in that position. You were in that position when the Minsk agreements were signed. And then Boris Johnson went and ripped them up and said, let's settle this on the battlefield. And Putin said, so be it. And that's what they did.
Okay. Well, should we switch the subject here? Got another interesting one. How about this new, all this AI? Let me get this article up here. Got senators championing no fakes on there's 2 separate acts that they're getting ready to pass, or at least talking about here, to get rid of deep fakes, despite the First Amendment alarms. should we let the government regulate some of these AI videos because they are getting really good? There was a big breakthrough over the weekend with Google's new Veo, and it's getting really tough to tell fact from fiction. In fact, we can run a couple of clips here. We've got one here. Let's try running short one. This is from Trump, and it looks legitimate, but of course it is not.
Lopping off someone's ding-a-ling doesn't make them a woman, it makes them a eunuch. But you already knew that, right? So, as I was saying, George Soros, Bill Gates, and many more are pursuing a depopulation agenda. Very inappropriate. Poison in the food, fake medicine, endocrine disruptors, psych meds, and mass immigration. They want to turn your kids gay, retarded, or both. David Hogg, Harry Sisson, and that one fat chick are the prototypes. Very off-putting. I don't often say the word yuck, but I think it fits here. Conspiracy theories, for the most part, are simply spoiler alerts. Alex Jones, paragon of truth and justice, has been saying these sorts of things for years, and it's high time we start paying attention. Lopping off someone's...
Okay. Yeah, another one there.
Everybody knows that was fake, but I see what you're saying.
Right.
But see, in this particular case, I think that that's what the president is thinking in his head, even though he's not saying it.
Oh yeah, it could almost be legitimate, or he could say that like behind closed doors. It would be cool, but yeah, it's going to be different. So I don't think I have to put a
That would
warning
be something
label.
I would definitely say. Like,
Well, I mean, this is no different than, newspapers of old. I don't know if you remember, but the yellow journalism started in the early 1900s with the Spanish-American War. The Hearst family, William Randolph Hearst, said, "You give me a photograph, I'll give you a war." They've been doing this fake news for a long, long time and have sucked a lot of people in, and a lot of people have died because of it. But we're a smarter, wiser population now, and I don't think this legislation is necessary.
Well, hold that thought. Speaking of that, I'm going to show you. I don't know if you've seen this video. It's been making the rounds the last couple days. It's pretty mind-blowing with all the different archetypes talking about kind of this end of the world sort of scenario here. So let me roll this clip because this could start a panic with the wrong crowd. Here we go.
A detonation has just occurred on the outer ring of the city. We'll now be going live to our top influencer opinions. OMG, people, the world is ending. Are you seeing this? This is actually so exciting.
Yo, I know it's chaos, but you got real survivor's wife energy.
That's cool, I like them feisty.
Like, it would totally be better if we ran it, you know? Men literally destroy everything, and my girls need to stop being so soft with these basic losers. Who even needs men, right? Anything a man builds just gets destroyed by a different man.
Guys, this collapse is literally the perfect dip. I'm buying more right now.
Nukes are Sua's aesthetic today. I made this outfit. Even as the world burns, my struggle for visibility and acceptance continues. This is exactly why representation matters now more than ever.
As I keep saying on the channel, the world collapses when men stop lifting. It's not politics, it's testosterone.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Balloon time. So yummy. Nuclear boom. So tasty. Thank you. Pop, pop, pop.
Nothing stops the daily grind. Not even a little natural disaster.
Friends, this is the breakthrough moment from chapter 7. When everything falls apart, we rebuild ourselves stronger.
My girl, you wouldn't believe what just happened.
Hi! OMG, I just totally shit my pants after that noise.
Chat, this is literally the most realistic survival game ever, and someone donate so I can buy a boat DLC before I actually drown.
So this company says their device is quote unquote indestructible, supposedly survives anything, including the literal end times.
Hey guys, remember, health is wealth. That's why I take these 7 supplements right before my cheese stuffed hot dogs.
Officials confirm outbound flights are suspended, except for government and priority class departures.
My dog has diplomatic status.
OMG, there's like a nuke or something? Can we get 5 gifted subs for surviving the blast, maybe?
Today I'm showing you how to infiltrate an executive class bunker using only social engineering and a
Your
vape.
nukes are so manly. You're such a big boy. Go check out the link in bio, my king.
I told you so when I said they'd shut down the grid. Look at you scrambling like rats now. The fiat system is collapsing exactly as we predicted. I just bought a bunker with doggy coin and a handshake. You losers can keep your degrees.
Remember, beautiful souls, even when the earth ends, we find our center. This is just the universe asking us to go deeper into our practice.
The world's in flames, but I'm on track. I manifest, then never give back.
Day in the life, guys, girls. Even during the apocalypse, I'm staying grateful, staying blessed. Link in bio for my manifestation course that literally predicted all this.
Oh my gosh.
Seed oils made y'all weak, but this here,
Y'all see this chaos, but plants don't lie. Earth's just cleansing the toxicity we've been ignoring.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible this is all just a simulation glitching out, but what do I know?
I told you so for 20 years of it. The globalists, the deep state, your precious government K. Wake up, people. They're not coming to save you now.
Damn, you evacuate like a goddess.
so
Bro, she smiled. That was a yes in fight or flight.
Everything is fake, including me. I'm a construct created by the Door brothers. Anyway, here's Tom with the weather.
Okay, so.
So we got some weather happening over here, and looks like it's going to be.
All right. Well, that is.
They want to have legislation to take that down. Why? I mean, that's like Saturday Night Live on crack.
It's a great entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's getting harder to tell if it's real or fake. You wouldn't know. And I mean, that's just where it's at now. So think about in a couple of years how that could be used.
I mean,
news actors to
I
do
have no
this.
problem. You know, if they're going to do things like, like the War of the Worlds, where people were jumping off skyscrapers and killing themselves and things of that nature. I mean, if they want to put some kind of, something at the bottom that, this isn't real or whatever, I have no issue with that whatsoever. And then, but as far as not allowing it to happen, I would disagree with that because it's funny.
Yeah, because you're talking about the Orson Welles broadcast. They had disclaimers, I don't know, every few minutes on that program. But look at the bullshit we've been watching on our mainstream media. They don't even change the lines. They just give the same lines to another actor and another actor and another actress, and they say the same damn thing. Only they claim it's true.
True. That's true.
Right. Yeah, like that Sinclair broadcasting clip. And
How about taking that bullshit down?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, something has to be done with truth in media. There needs to be a way for the public to go after them after it's found that the information that they've been giving is false. Even like with the jab, all of those news media outlets should be held accountable for everything they said, for all the browbeating they did of the general public. They're just as accountable as the government is because they were the propaganda arm for Fauci and his minions during that time. And
they went kind of overboard with it. They used their badges and their guns, and they came to your place of business, and they said, you will shut down, or we will take all the money you have in the bank and keep it.
I agree. I mean, and the fact that the governors would pick, like, why you couldn't get COVID if you went into Walmart, but if you went into the local grocery store, you could. So,
That's
those
right.
types of things. I mean, it's injustice and it, I don't want to go too far ahead in the program, but, one of the things I've been posting about constantly is I'm sick and tired of this administration. I'm sick and tired of government as usual. I voted for Trump. I back him 100%, but I'm sick and freaking tired. We hear about, we found trillions of dollars being stolen. We have not heard not one name of who's going to be arrested, who's going to be indicted, who was involved in it. All of these people that screwed us over during, the COVID epidemic. Why isn't Fauci being arrested? Why isn't he being indicted? Why aren't all these people that we know about, that we know for a fact committed federal criminal acts? Why are they not being indicted? Why are they not being arrested? This is what's really irritating me. It's like business as usual. You know, government to me is as corrupt today as it was during the Biden administration because they are doing nothing to correct the errors and the criminal acts that occurred during that time. Nothing. You know, they throw a little person here, a little person there. You got Kash Patel saying, oh, Epstein was a suicide, blah, blah, blah. Okay, show us the evidence. Show us the reports. Who was sleeping on duty? Who was fired? Who was, prosecuted for not doing their job? They don't show us it. They just, take my word for it. I was a public defender. I was a prosecutor. I was this. Believe me. I don't believe you. I don't believe anybody in government. Show me the facts.
That's right. And you say to yourself, why, if we know there are 13 senators that took bribes from the cartel, why don't we know their names? Why aren't they arrested?
Exactly. Why can't you tell us who they are?
Right.
There's no reason. There is no reason in the world that they can't say, Senator so-and-so, 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 so-and-so took bribes from the cartel, and we are currently in the process of obtaining indictments. There is nothing that that would forbid them from doing it. They, like a lot of times they say, oh, well, it's still under investigation, so we really can't say anything. If they know and they are saying that these people specifically took bribes, done deal. Bring it out. Tell us who they are.
Yeah, we got the bank accounts. Quit talking to us about the Bidens and all these names. Let's start putting real people in jail.
Right. And they keep coming out with all these things. Would you support Kash Patel arresting Hunter Biden? I mean, really? Yes, of course we all do. And that's why we freaking put you in office. Arrest his ass. Put him in jail. That's what you're there for.
Yep. If 20% of the federal judges have a conflict of interest or they have taken bribes, impeach them like that. Don't
put them in jail. They can go to jail just like everybody else.
Right.
And I'm sick of the whole thing. I mean, it's like, show me one thing that Trump has done in this administration. Name one thing where they have taken an egregious event, a criminal act against the American people, and have indicted that person, and they're going to jail. Now, yeah, they've arrested some little dumbass judges. Yeah, they've done some little tiny things, but we have egregious criminal acts that were committed against the American people. They have verified that. Name one that has been arrested. Name one person that has been arrested or indicted. You can't, because Bondi's a loser, Kash is a loser, his assistant is a loser. We need people in there who are willing to go for broke and put these people in prison.
I regret every day,
which I'm sure he's not listening. I would like the answers to these questions, Mr. President. You came in, you told us you were going to do these things. You told us you were going to basically drain the swamp, clean the swamp, put these people in prison. Answer the damn question. Why aren't you doing it? Why are you sitting on your hands and doing nothing? Are you part of the problem? Are you just the same as they are? And you're just, playing a different game to try to appease the American people for a few years so you can get a different agenda, the same agenda through in a different way? I mean, tell us, let us know so that we can take the appropriate action now.
I agree. He's the premier law enforcement officer in the land, and I miss having Matt Gaetz as the possible attorney general. I think he would have been great.
There's no reason he shouldn't be. None. So did we go too far off topic there, Blake?
No, you're good. You're good. I was going to throw in one question here for Dr. Brooks. We're asking you about the Ivor in the.
I posted the link in the private chat. You can stick it up there.
Yeah, they were just wondering about the weight and the dosage.
Oh. Well, the report explains it all to you. But the tablets are dosed for 150 pounds of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds and you get COVID, you should take 2 at a time for 10 days. If you have cancer and you're trying to get rid of cancer, the protocol is you double the dosage. So you should take 4 a day for 6 months.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Well, we want to switch gears and bring in another topic here. I just had one minor one here. It's just a slightly good news. I guess they're removing the jab from the CDC schedule, but just for kids and pregnant women for now. So it's a tiny bit of progress. But yeah, we definitely want to see some accountability for Fauci and so many others. Tried to lock everybody down and lied about the leak. And so much more. All right. Well, since it is Toxically Masculine Tuesday, how about some, we'll go into this awkward story in France with Macron as his wife smacks him in the face in front of the press, treats him like a little bitch, I guess, at least according to this.
His wife is a dude, right? She's a transvestite.
Apparently, yeah, it was his grade school teacher who was, it was a dude who was transitioned. I know Candace Owens has done a tremendous job of trying to expose it all.
Basically, his husband smacked him in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Bitch slapped him with a pork chop.
Yeah, let's check this one out here. There it is. We'll roll that one more time. Boom. But I believe
he said, "Oh, you hit like a girl."
And she or he, I guess, refused to hold his hand as they walked down the stairs together.
It still has a prostate. So
wow.
Look, you can see it's a dude. You can totally see it's a dude.
Yeah, there's something very, very wrong there. So that people kind of tend to make this might be a puppet president, and that's who's actually running things. Is it Brigitte?
I had to wipe my face because our downstairs air conditioner went out, and there is no coolant anywhere in North Carolina to fix air conditioners.
Really?
Why is that?
The Chinese blockade. All of the coolant is made in China and is sitting on ships off the coast of Shanghai.
Well, that doesn't sound good. All right. Speaking of which, I've heard some criticism recently of Trump and the FEMA and the response for is Trump failing something there with FEMA and helping the victims there from the hurricane?
Well, the trouble is that the federal government is the source of a lot of funding, but it's the state that has the authority to implement anything, especially like from the Red Cross or FEMA or anything like that. So our criminal Democrat governor, whose name is now Josh Stein, I don't even know who he is. I've never heard of him before. And I'm pretty active in North Carolina politics for almost 20 years now. I don't even know who Josh Stein is. Nobody I know knows who he is, but somehow he got elected governor, and he has sucked all the FEMA money, all the relief money for Western North Carolina, and redistributed it to illegals. So, and the reason is, of course, because 95% of this entire region, which, by the way, is the size of the country of Belgium, that's how much area was affected. They're all Trump supporters. And so they got no money.
Okay. Well, the tragedy continues, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll fix that up.
See, the problem is, FEMA is just basically they write the checks, and they have certain people that go in on the ground, but the state itself is the one who actually activates and sends people out.
It works
and gets things done. So if the state decides to hold back and not send people out and not do their job, then FEMA's not doing this, FEMA's not doing that. Well, FEMA only writes the check, so it's the state that's not doing it.
That's why DeSantis is so great. When the hurricane is just being named, he has his response crew all fueled up and ready to go. And as soon as the wind starts dying down, they go out and put the lines back up, clear all the debris away, dump it all in the landfills, and that's why Florida just carries on.
Very good. Okay, well, we're ready to switch gears again. I've got another story. I'm kind of on the same line here as the Brigitte. This one just popped up on the Gateway Pundit. It's a trans TikToker going through his horrific experience, or I don't want to misgender here. Misgendered at a Disney World after the server called him sir. And he
So is he a dude? Is he a dude or not?
That's a good question. I believe so. I would refer to it as a sir. And it's hard to tell when you're wearing like the mouse ears. So it could have been an innocent mistake. But yeah, apparently this poor person lost their appetite after being misgendered and no longer feels safe in Disney World.
You know what my response is to that? You know what my response is to that? Grow up.
Yeah, I wear my mouse ears, but you can't tell because I have a hamster bulge in my pants. Jeez.
All right, let's take a look. Here we go. Let's see if the volume is up good enough. We'll see.
The bottom is from Thailand.
Coconut bread from Thailand.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Sorry. And the middle one is from.
So have you heard that? He's
so that's the one that was called sir.
And then he corrected the waitress to say no, that's ma'am. And then it all went downhill from there.
Wow.
Coconut bread from Thailand.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Sorry. And
you're a dude. I would have, if I was a waitress, I would have said you're a dude.
Papadom with the gingerbread chutney.
You're not a male.
And the third is from Brazil.
He's a newbie. He hasn't even had a chance to grow his hair out.
Like, totally sucks the joy out of the bread tower. Makes me want.
Well, it sucked all the joy out of his bread tower. He was looking forward to. I wonder how much they paid for that. I know the food's pretty expensive.
You know these people go in there specifically
because I know
specifically to get offended somehow, some way, so they can file a suit or go on TikTok or whatever the hell they do.
Yeah, that's definitely on the TikTok, the latest outrage. So I don't know if anybody's actually going to.
He lost his appetite.
Yeah,
I gained my appetite back.
Good for you.
All right. Well, let's see. What else do we have on tap? We've got, of course, the auto pen scandal is ongoing. And maybe should we consider being run by a Politburo? That was interesting word I heard today. Apparently it's from the Soviets, the communist Soviets back in the day. And that's how Biden's inner circle referred to their situation as they ran the presidency by a small committee of advisors and, of course, and family members with Jill and Hunter. So let's, where is this one? After the new book has outlined, and actually Jake Tapper exposed this, revealed the devastation, why aides were willing to do undemocratic things to keep the faltering president in power. So do you guys think we'd be better off with being run secretly by a Politburo instead of one man or woman as the executor?
That's why we have a vice president. As much as I detested her, she was supposed to take over if he wasn't able to run the country. The whole purpose of a vice president.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you bring that up because this fight actually took place back in 1801. This is before Republicans and Democrats. And back then they were called Federalists and Anti-Federalists. And the Federalists were the precursors to the Democrats. And what they hated was the ability for the people to actually pick representation. They didn't want Congress to have any power. They wanted everything to be run by this bureau, by this think tank. They were called the Federalists. In fact, in those days, the vice president and president ran separate elections. So it was quite possible to get a conservative and a liberal in the White House at the same time, and nothing got done. It was exactly what they tried to do again. And what they want is their secret little cabal and an auto pen and some boob or some puppet, some muppet in the White House that everybody thinks they elected. That's exactly what they wanted.
Well, that's the way it's been for the last several years anyway. I mean, under the Obama administration, under the Biden administration, I'll even go as far back as Bush. You know, they were pushing the New World Order,
Oh
the
yeah.
new agenda, when they were manipulating the American people to get their way.
Yeah, people think, oh, Bush was such a strong president. No, he wasn't. He was a complete wimp when he was first elected. We didn't even accept him as president. It was the hanging chads that got him in there. We were in limbo for months and months and months. It wasn't until 9/11 was executed that Bush became powerful. That's why you should question that whole series of events, because it took this political cripple, George W. Bush, and made him the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely Cheney or Rumsfeld and whoever else is back there, the neocon, Karl Rove.
Way.
Definitely. So yeah, they've been.
All you got to do is follow the money, and that's who's running the country.
For sure.
Well, except now, I think, and in a sense now, but it's a different. It's not like Soros and U.S. aid pumping money to Soros to turn around and bribe secretaries of state and governors and judges.
I get it. But that being the case, why aren't they going to jail? Why aren't they being named?
It's a really great question, because the people of the world, not just the United States, the people of the world are demanding justice. And if we don't get it, we're going to go to the next level, which is war.
Yeah, looks like they could be gearing up, whether it's with Israel, Iran, or Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, it's definitely.
You know, Trump's talking about this Golden Dome thing, and he signed this executive order to make it possible. He still doesn't seem to understand that they don't have to blow up our cities to destroy America. All they have to do is turn the lights out for about 72 hours. The armies are already in our cities. They're already here. They're already armed. They have orders. They are ready to go. All they need are the lights to go out, and you will watch our cities destroy ourselves. They don't need missiles to do it. We will do it.
If you go to a place like Phoenix, and in the summertime you cut out the water and you cut out the power, and people are literally burning up in their homes, have nothing to drink, no way to cool off, and you have someone come down the street and say, hey, bring your guns out, bring out your extra food, we'll drop off water. Once we check your house and make sure that you've gotten rid of everything that we want, we'll turn your power back on. People will do it in a freaking heartbeat.
Yeah,
the same
you're right.
thing will happen in the East when it gets cold. You turn off people's gas so their furnaces don't work, and they're freezing, and their water, all their plumbing is frozen and busting, and you tell them the same thing, they will do it in a heartbeat. People talk a big line, but when it push comes to shove, they always want to take the easy way out. And that's what they've been training the American people to do for the last 20 years, is to be compliant, comply. And like I said, I hear a lot of people talking smack, and I know for a fact that, like I said, when push comes to shove, they won't do anything. They will go right along, lockstep with whoever's in power, and they will turn you in a heartbeat. If it gains them one extra thing, that's a fact.
It will happen. Like if they were to come to the end of our street and go to the first house by registration, say this guy's got 8 guns, we're going to stop and get him. So they knock on the door, tell the guy to bring his guns out. Of course, we're all looking out the window. How come all the cops are down there at Frank's house? He doesn't bring his guns out, so they tase him, beat him up, take the guns anyway, and then they go to the next house. And then the next one, and the next one. You think people are going to come out and say, hey, you need to get out of our neighborhood right now? Nope. They will all comply, one house at a time.
Look at what happened. Look at what happened during the BLM riots. People's houses were being torched. Doors were being kicked in. Did anybody defend themselves?
One
Did
guy.
you hear people getting blown? Did you see hundreds of bodies on the street from people being blown out the front door? No. So, they say, well, that's why they did it in Minneapolis and they didn't do it in places like, the South, Little Rock, Arkansas, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is that there are only certain parts of the country and certain people who will defend themselves. If I see them coming down the street and doing that, now I've got the advantage. I'm going to engage them when they're nowhere near me and put them in a bad situation. But in most cases, people are like, oh, I don't want to get involved. Maybe it has nothing to do with the guy just owning a few guns. Maybe he's a felon. Maybe he's a child molester. I'm just going to plug my ears and pretend like it's not happening.
Right.
You're going to see that over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's why the song came out, Try That in a Small Town.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, that's the thing. Like, even when you look at the Russians, when you look at history, they left the Siberians alone because the Siberians, they would say, look, you don't do what we say, we're going to kill everybody in this community. And the Siberians are like, go ahead, and we will kill 10 times as many soldiers and destroy and make your life miserable for as long as possible. So you go ahead and do it. And sure enough, it was easier to trade with and work with the Siberians than it was to try to force them to do something, because every time they tried to force them, the return on their investment was zero.
Nazis tried the same thing. They invaded when the weather was great in the spring. They just rolled right on up into Russia. And when wintertime hit, the brutal reality set in.
Yeah, that's the way they like it. Use that leverage. Yeah, a lot of dictators or Mao or Stalin or anybody, likes to control the population.
Well, Mao had a little different situation. Mao
Yeah.
very successfully divided his country ideologically. You're either with me or you're against me. And if you're against me, if you're against joining my great solution, we're going to starve you out. And that's what they did. 20 million people died.
Yeah.
Trust me, I don't care who's in office. It's not going to be easy. I keep telling people, watch yourself. Things are not going to get any better. It's all smoke and mirrors. If things were going to get better, our jails would be packed full of these people who have been stealing from the American people and who have been destroying our economy and destroying our government from within. It's not happening.
You're right.
Still the target. You're still the victim. And if you think anything else, if you think anything other than that, you got to screw loose.
And they know it. And that's why Jasmine Crotchet can come out and say, in 26, we're going to take back over Congress. And I personally will lead the effort to prosecute Trump and all his family and all his supporters.
Yep.
She's running Big Tish's manual for self-enrichment, and she thinks it's going to work.
And it very well may. See, this is the thing. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We think that we're plugging, all we've done is stuck our finger in the dike and we're waiting for it to explode. We don't know that they have corrected, and I know they haven't corrected the voter fraud. I know that these politicians that have stole from us, we know they still go to work every day. We don't see any of them leaving in fear or resigning their positions. We know that none of this, as far as we know, they've cut the money off, but we don't know that for a fact. All these places could still be receiving their, the funding that they've been stealing for years. We don't, like I said, we don't know. All we know is what we're being told, because we're not being shown anything, nothing. We're just being told, oh yeah, we found, Brooks Agnew's taking $20 billion, or a guy we think named Brooks Agnew's taking $20 billion, and we're stopping that. We don't know that they did. We don't know that he's still not getting it. Just like the guy who supposedly gets like $100,000 a month in Social Security. They never told his name. They never said he was, when he was going to be indicted. They never said who was investigating him. And they said, oh, well, we cut the money off. How do we know that? You didn't do anything else.
You're right. I mean, we Doge catches it, and they say, well, this money's going to this NGO, and sitting on the board of the NGO that traffics children in Chicago, $6 million a month, is Jill Biden. What? Yeah, these are facts. They're coming out in documentaries. You got these judges, Merchant and Boasberg and all these other judges. Their kids, their nephews, their wives, their brothers and sisters, they're running these NGOs that all this cash is flowing to, and they're supposedly, doing pro bono legal work for illegal aliens. They're not. They're just pocketing the money.
Right. I mean, look at, they found those tractor trailers full of dead children's body parts. I mean, horrific things. And what always happens when they find that kind of stuff? The people who found it, the people who are investigating it, commit suicide.
Right.
Even with Epstein, that, their star witness committed suicide.
Yeah.
So here again, what is the Trump administration doing that's any different? Everything that was happening under the Biden administration, everything that was happening under Bush, everything that was happening under Clinton is happening now. It's a little more open. We have a little more information than we used to have. We're getting patted on the head a little more, but what really has changed? Name it. I mean, I
Why
can't name
is
one thing.
it the big, beautiful bill on the one hand is supposed to lower the deficit by $1.6 trillion. And on the very next breath, they say it's going to double the debt or double the deficit. You can't have both.
That's right. So, stay prepared. That's all I can say is, I tell people all the time, I go, this is just, in my opinion, this is a reprieve. This is a time to get your act together. If you haven't already done so, get your life in order, get things together so that when things go bad, you're ready for it. Because I don't see things getting any better. I just see, like I said, people talking out of both sides of their mouth. I would love to say President Trump, came in to save us and things are going to change. Haven't changed yet. And until they change, as far as I'm concerned, it's life is business as usual. And I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing in an effort to take care of my family. I'm going to make sure.
Well,
I have plenty of food.
that's why
Food,
people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and others, they need to take these Doge cuts and the very next day pass a law to codify that Doge cut, make it law, make it happen. That way judges can't touch it.
Judges, and again, there again, as far as I'm concerned, what the judges are doing is not constitutional. And just like Biden, Trump needs to ignore them. Needs to totally just say, hey, it's what you're doing is not constitutional. Go to hell. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not stopping anything.
I'd like to see that. Yeah, it's been disappointing thinking that there's going to make a big difference. I mean, things are at least in a much better situation than if we had, Kamala or, God forbid, Biden for another term. But yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's a reprieve. It's not a pardon. It's just a reprieve. We've got a little more time to do the things that need to get done.
Yeah, before Jasmine Crockett takes over and right, uses the
AOC
congressional committee to go after everybody.
I mean, when you got guys like Tom Cotton who pretend to be Republicans, who sit there and pound their chest, who voted along with the Democrats and the, Build Back Better bills and all that kind of stuff, the very first thing that the Republicans need to be doing is getting rid of those people, right? All the rhinos need to go. They're worse than the Democrats because they claim to be one thing and there's something totally different.
We have the same problem in North
And
Carolina.
yet, people are patting them on the back and, you're a good Republican, and they're just lying pieces of filth. They're the amoebas that cling to the walls of hell. And, same thing with, I can't think of his name. He's out of Texas, Mr. Eye Patch, Navy SEAL.
Oh, Eye Patch McCain.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, that guy, same thing. Votes with the Democrats, does whatever the Democrats tell him to do.
Dan Crenshaw.
Yep. And one of the things when Crenshaw got elected early on, I actually know him. And we were conversing on a regular basis. And the very first time that I confronted him, he blocked me and I was the Antichrist. Is when I confronted him, I said, wait a minute. I said, they're giving the American people, and I can't remember the exact dollar amount, like, $2,000. And I said, they're giving every elected official like $50,000. Why has no politician stood up and said, hey, wait a minute, we don't need the $50,000. Not one person identified, not one elected official identified that they were getting, 10 times the amount that the average American citizen was getting, the average taxpayer. And when I confronted him on that, he's like, oh, you don't understand. And then that was it. Didn't want to talk to me anymore. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, all of these guys and gals, whatever, it's that we have up there elected are criminals. Because if all right, when they passed the Build Back Better, each one of them got $250 million for security. Did one elected official stand up and say, hey, I'm not taking this $250 million. If this thing passes, the whole point of passing this is every elected official that votes for it, plus those that didn't, if it passes, gets $250 million. Not one stood up and said one word about it because they were hoping it passed to get their $250 million.
Yeah.
To me, that makes them all criminals.
Yep, it's true. I don't want any of this Doge savings. Don't write me a check. Don't increase my Social Security. I don't want it. Pay off the debt. Stop spending so much money. Just stop it. You got 20 million people that are over 100 years old drawing Social Security. Really? Just stop it.
You know how you can help me? I mean, if the government really wants to help me, they can cut my taxes, right? I shouldn't be paying taxes. Once you're a certain age, once you're retired, you shouldn't have to pay a tax on your home anymore. It should be free and clear. You pay your mortgage, you own it till you die. If they want to, tax the next person to buy it once you croak, that's fine. But I mean, to me, it's always been a mystery. Why pay taxes on the money that I earn? Then I pay taxes on everything I buy. Then I pay tax on my house when I buy it. And then I pay tax on that every year. And then they try to pass other taxes for me to pay to support the school systems or whatever.
What about the lottery? With the lottery, we should have the best school system on the planet, right?
Yeah. And it's more money, and we get nothing in return. Nothing. Like I said, a person, when they buy their home, once they pay that tax on the initial tax for purchasing the home, that should be it. There should be no more taxes on that house. Same thing with a vehicle. Every year I can see them charging, $9 for a license plate, $10 for a license plate, but charging you a percentage of that car's value is criminal.
I pay $600 a year for my vehicles. You're right.
And then you have states like Michigan. Brooks is a national speaker, so he goes up to New York to do a speaking engagement. So he gets a traffic ticket. He lives in Michigan, and he pays his traffic fine. He's guilty. He says, I'm guilty. So he goes up, pays his, $500, $50, whatever ridiculous amount the state of New York is charging. He gets back to Michigan. He gets a letter in the mail that because he's such a horrible driver and got a ticket out of state and has embarrassed the state of Michigan, that he now owes the state of Michigan $500. And if he doesn't pay it immediately, he will lose his license to drive. And they contact, which again is criminal.
Wow.
then they contact Brooks's insurance company and says, hey, you need to raise his rates because he doesn't know how to behave when he leaves the state.
And they spanked that rash a few more times.
Yep. So again, how ridiculous can it get? I mean, first of all, the state of Michigan has no jurisdiction in anything you do in the state of New York. None, zero, zip. How can they fine you, write you a ticket, and expect you to pay it, and then, threaten to cancel your license when you have done nothing illegal in the state of Michigan?
That's why we call them revenuers.
And yet, have you had any attorneys challenge it? Nope.
That's why we call them revenuers.
That's what I'm saying. We are a nation. I don't care what you say. We are a nation of slaves. And you do what we say, or we're going to ruin your life. Do what we say, or you're not going to be able to function the way that you normally function. And that's a fact. It's not, it's no secret. And if you go down and you go to the Secretary of State or whatever the case may be, and you say, hey, this, how is this constitutional? How can you do this? They're like, we do whatever we want, because if you don't do it, we're going to take your license away and then you can't drive anymore.
Yeah.
We have that power. And again, it's just a way for them to get more and more and more money.
It's true.
Racket. I agree there.
Anything else, Blake?
Well, all I have left is a hypothetical thing for fun if you guys want to play. But that's
I do, but we already know that Brooks is going to win.
Well, I want to talk about nuclear power plants and the law or the act that was just put into place. This nuclear ordering the reform of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And once this is done, and it should be done pretty quickly, probably in the next week to 10 days, it's going to allow the United States to do something we haven't done in 37 years. We're going to be able to build new nuclear power plants.
Okay, and what's your feeling on it?
Talk about clean, renewable energy. There you go.
No, I'm all for nuclear energy, but so this will allow them to do it without what, state's permission or what?
No, they still have to have state permission, but what has held them back is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has stopped any nuclear power plant construction for 37 years. We have not had a new plant built in 37 years, and the technology is way better now than it was. We can build them for other countries. We build them for Japan. We build them in South America. We build them in Europe, Southern Europe, not Northern Europe, but we don't build them here. And we need to have about another 50 nuclear power plants in this country in order to stabilize our grid and keep our costs down.
Well, I'm all for it. Anything that keeps the cost down. I'm off grid technically. I'm still hooked to the grid, but I have solar and a gas generator and battery power. So my bill is like next to nothing. But with the technology the way it is, with the money that we know that the United States has now that has been stolen from us, we should be able to have a power grid that supplies us all the power we need for next to nothing.
Sure.
And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. You want to build a nuclear plant? Have at it.
Yeah, as long as it's clean. It's not like the Fukushima disaster, which kind of terrified everybody. But
I toured Fukushima before the tidal wave. It was a great cesium plant. But the locals knew that they built it on a fault line, and it was right there on the beach almost. So they knew it was susceptible to this kind of natural disaster. But it was still a very cool plant, very modern, very clean, a cesium pile, much more stable than a uranium pile. And it provided power for everything all the way to the south end of Tokyo, Fukushima did. And then, a series of unfortunate events. And the cooling pumps didn't work, probably because it was infected with the Stuxnet virus. And now you have a world catastrophe. But that doesn't happen with all the nuclear power. We have nuclear power plants all up and down the Mississippi River. Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, and they all have been functioning for a long, long time and provide the center portion of our grid. Old Hickory, which is kind of the epicenter of the grid in the United States of America, was built because of the TVA. And in those days, there weren't enough people living per mile to justify building utilities. So the Tennessee Valley Authority was funded to build the utilities so that the Midwest, or should I say the Mid-South, could grow. It couldn't grow before. It didn't have electricity. So everything from Louisville down to about Atlanta was able to grow because of the TVA. And that's
well, that brings me to another question, because it's my understanding that 3 Mile Island was put up for sale and Bill Gates purchased it. And the reason he purchased it was to get enough electricity to keep his servers and keep private servers up
exactly
and running.
Right.
I mean, what do you think that's legit? I mean, I don't think a private company should be able to buy a nuclear power plant like that and use it, for those.
That's exactly what happened.
Types of things.
Yeah,
But I mean, do you think that that's legit? Do you think that they should be allowed to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a old one of the oldest textile factories in the United States is not far from here, down south of Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I went down there with a group to try and buy that plant. It was lots of square footage, but the value of the plant was a 10 megawatt gas powered turbine generator that was part of that property. What they wanted was to refurbish and start up that turbine and use the building as an AI server farm.
Okay.
And that was the value in that property. And as far as I know, that sale's going through. I'm not part of it anymore, but I went down there with those guys to survey it.
Well, I know, but I mean, that's a little bit different than a nuclear power plant. I mean,
It is.
There are dangers with a nuclear power plant that you don't have with that turbine.
Well, speaking of which, we asked that question here from Frankie Brooks. What happens if another, like a solar flare happens or an EMP? What happens to those nuclear facilities?
There is an organization called the NERC, the National Electrical Reliability Corporation. And we had a debate in Amsterdam. I'm thinking it was 2012. And in this debate, I brought up the fact that we had created this grid in our United States. And with creating the grid, actually the power sharing across the grid, it created 3 vulnerabilities that the NERC was designed to alleviate. One was, exactly as you bring up, natural disasters, either a solar flare or some kind of hurricane or some kind of earthquake that would disrupt the power in one region, so the power could be sent to that region from another region that's not affected. And that's what the NERC was designed to do. The other one was a purposeful attack like an EMP or an act of war. And the third one was cyber hacking. So that's why the NERC was developed. And what I brought up in the debate was, and what I was representing there was what's called low voltage local supply. Instead of generating voltage at 400,000 volts or 200,000 volts, we generate power at 20,000 volts or 14.4 thousand volts and deliver it locally at a local grid, not put it on the main grid, but power these local regions and make them independent instead of dependent upon the grid. And all I asked for was 1% of the money they were spending with the NERC to do it, and they turned it down.
It's rough.
Of course, you cannot use common sense when you're talking about national security and the power grid. You got to leave common sense completely out of it and do it the opposite way.
Oh, I thought that our proposal was reasonable, especially when you're talking about hospitals, traffic control systems, airports that need a local low voltage supply instead of being dependent upon the main grid. So if the main grid went down, you'd have a local system like a thorium reactor, and there were even cheaper technologies available that are still available now to bring a local grid up that can generate, say, 10 or 12 megawatts.
And of course, we're not going to use it because it makes sense. Basically, you can tell whenever somebody puts a plan together like you did that makes perfect sense, you already know the answer before it even goes before anybody. It's going to be no.
Well, and then they brought on smart meters, and I helped refurbish a manufacturing facility that makes smart meters. I don't know if you're old enough, Steve, you remember. Maybe Blake doesn't remember. But the early technology for us in communications were what we called beepers. And the beepers ran on 88 megahertz. It was a band around 88 megahertz. So it was convenient for us. We got a beep, a phone number to call. We went to a pay phone. We called that number, and that's how we stayed in touch. We didn't have cell phones or anything like that in those days. Well, when that technology became obsolete, the frequency band freed up. No one was using the 88 megahertz band. So smart meters picked up the 88 megahertz band with Zigbees. These are little about credit card size radios that go inside your meters. And they don't have much power, maybe an eighth of a watt or something, just enough to reach the repeater or just enough to reach that pickup truck that drives by your house once a month to pull how much electricity you've used. Not very much power at all. And that smart meter technology allowed the grid to do what's called power shaving. If they needed a few extra megawatts in the afternoons, if it got really hot, they could shut people's water heaters down and their heat pumps down and all this kind of stuff by just calling up the meter and turning off the power.
Amazing.
It's all about control. It's all about a central control. If they had a neighborhood get out of control, like Steve said, they would just shut off your electricity and bring
they
you.
would do it at a time. They would do it at a time that would be the most inconvenient for the homeowner or the resident. Because like I said, you want to control Phoenix, wait till the middle of summer. You can do whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
Say no water, no power. You're going to die within a matter of hours unless you do this. People are going to bend over backwards to get it done.
Canada showed us the way.
Yep.
When the truckers said, we are not taking that jab, we're not taking it. We will lock down Quebec, and we are not taking it. What did they do?
Cleaned out their bank accounts.
Way they canceled their insurance. The central control systems shut off the CPUs in their trucks so they wouldn't run, and they just drove these truckers out of business.
Yep. All right. Anything else, Mr. Blake?
That's very effective. If you guys want to play hypothetical games for fun, what would you do in a situation such as this? If you were offered, would you rather, if you got $10 million or you had the opportunity to restart your life at 6 years old with all the knowledge that you have now, what would you rather do?
I would do the 6-year-old thing, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea because you'd have to redo your entire life, all your choices, everything.
Well, I know what choices to make, and I know I would be like a multi-billionaire by the age of 9.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that would be doable or not, or you'd have to wait a while. Because I think the way I answered this,
I could take my pennies that my granny would give me, and I could buy penny stocks and be a billionaire before too long.
You could use that information, but you'd have to go like 10 or 15 years of life as like going through grade school, getting on the school bus, nothing but reruns on television, no internet, no nothing. It'd be a long sacrifice.
Yeah, but your interests would change because you're redoing your life all over again. So you know the bad things that you did that didn't help you. Yeah. So you'd stop doing that and you would start doing things that would be productive in your life.
Yeah, there's a
more
benefit
help.
to it. It's a long time to wait, and then you can change everything. It'd be a cheat code going through life. It'd be an interesting way to play it.
Well, that's how I would do it. And then, and then there's things that you regret, like, back when, my grandparents took very, very good care of me. Didn't have a very good home life. Took very, very good care of me. And at that time, that they were elderly, I did take care of them as best I could. And they lived to be very old and before they passed. But I would give anything to have been able to have, like, paid off their mortgage, bought them a house, paid for their cars, any of that kind of stuff. If I had it to do all over again, I'd be doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would be the fun. I think it would be more fun to kind of help the other people, your family, and all that kind of stuff. But
and then there are people that disgust me that I like do everything in my power to destroy them.
But when people listen, I think I've run into that obstacle where it's like there's a cognitive dissonance and you're never really going to break through. Like you could go back and try to redo things and present the information in a different way, but people still might not listen no matter how you present.
Well, no, I would be rich and I would have a battery of attorneys, so I just beat them into a greasy spot, into a pulp, and then I would have plenty of legal protection to get me out of it, because back in the day, when you used to beat the snot out of somebody, you could get out of it, unlike today.
Right.
I never remember when I first became a policeman, unless it was an assault against a female or a child, if it was just two guys fighting, we never arrested them. Never. Why? They were just two guys, had a disagreement. The next day they were going to be shaking hands and having a beer. We never hooked them up, because we knew exactly what was going to happen. They'd be best friends the next day. It was a waste of time.
It'd be an
It wasn't until the feminazis took over and they started feminizing the country where, we can't have people bullying each other. We can't have people fighting. We can't have this. We can't have that. They brought in all the psychology and all the bullshit. It wasn't until that time that the world went to hell. Back when, guys, if Brooks had a problem with his neighbor and they duked it out behind the garage and had a beer and settled it, we didn't have all the problems we had today. It was taken care of. That's just the way it was. You had a problem with your neighbor, you settled it. And I'm not saying there wasn't any crime, but it's not like today.
Right.
You didn't have hordes of people running rampant and burning down entire, cities. We did have prior to that, in the 60s, we had problems in Detroit with the race riots and whatnot, but not like today. So, and all of that was created by the women feminizing the United States and, in fact, the world. And that's what's caused all the problems. The dads weren't involved anymore. Everybody has to be nice to each other, blah, 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 blah. I could go on for days. But the reality is sometimes getting your ass whipped isn't a bad thing. Sometimes, fighting for what is right isn't a bad thing. Sometimes when people get out of line and they are extremely destructive and you go in and hammer the crap out of them to stop them, it isn't a bad thing. Right? Because there has to be rules. There has to be justice. There has to be law and order. If there's not, then everything's lost.
Agreed. Civilization lost. Okay. Well, I think that's all I've got on tap, unless you guys have anything else.
Well, Brooks didn't answer the question.
Brooks,
I would take the 10 million, because I wasn't a 6-year-old, but I was a 9-year-old, and I had all the knowledge of an adult. And it did me no good, because nobody would listen to me because I was freaking 9. So I already had all the knowledge, and it didn't mean that I had wisdom. I made stupid mistakes. Like I did not wait till I was graduated to get married, things like that. But if I had 10 million now, there'd be no looking back. All my kids and grandkids would be set for the rest of their lives. And the entire forward generations of the Agnew clan would change forever.
That's true.
Blake, you didn't mention us in that comment. Did you notice that? We didn't get even a I'll buy you a garage to park your car.
Right. Little something. I mean, I don't know how much the IRS is going to take of that 10 million. They're probably going to take a big bite of that as well. But yeah, a little stipping for the rest of us.
Well, our grandparents never wanted us to take care of them. What I wish my dad would have done and my grandparents would have done is taking care of the next generation. That's how generations proliferate. When the current generation takes all the money and all the money the grandkids are earning, that's the failure of any society. That's what we're doing right now.
The failure is, in my opinion, with my grandparents, I had a greedy relative who basically cleaned out everything that they had when they were in a position that they could not defend themselves. So, and I see that time and time and time again. It's not that the grandparents or parents didn't plan for the grandchildren or children. It's that someone got in there and screwed up the works before it was allowed to happen. And in my law enforcement career, I saw that like millions of times over. So, and I know that if you did it, Brooks, it would be done correctly and you would have attorneys involved and things like that. But usually if things are screwed up in a family, it's a family member who screws it up, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. And that's basically what happened with my family too, is my grandparents and my parents drank all their money away. They were all alcoholics.
Yeah.
Not good.
Just like Blake. If Blake gets a family, gets married, he will drink up every penny that he's got.
It's gonna be all drugs and
In
whores.
fact, it'll say in his will. It'll say in his will, if I have $1 left, something has gone wrong.
Right.
In my financial responsibilities. All right, gentlemen. I guess we're out of here. It was good seeing you.
Yeah.
Sorry Mike wasn't here, but like I said, he had to get in touch with his feminine side. So next week, you guys, the audience, you can ask him if he's gay now or what. But we didn't know what he meant by that. We're like, in touch with your feminine side. He's like, yeah, it's something I have to do. So maybe you guys can get to the bottom of it because we sure could.
You sure it wasn't that he just had to touch something feminine?
Like his cat or something? I mean, I have no idea. But anyway, we'll get to the bottom of it next week and find out what happened.
There we go. Toxically Masculine Tuesday, another one in the books. Wasn't sure, but yeah, it was a good time tonight, guys. So
happy birthday to
you! And it's always good to see you guys. It's always wonderful to be around Brooks. It's always wonderful to be around Blake. Mike, he's a dick. So
happy birthday to me.
Sometimes it's good to have a break from him. Huh?
I said happy birthday to me.
And happy birthday to
happy
Brooks.
birthday to Brooks, who is 39 years old.
Yeah.
45, but who's counting?
All right. We'll see you next week.
Congratulations. All right. Yeah, sounds good. All right, guys. Well, let's do that. All right. Thank you, everybody. He'll be back next week. Hopefully with Mike. We're not 100%, but we'll see. He's got a very busy schedule coming up. But if not, maybe it'll be the three of us again, and we'll look forward to that too. All right. So until then,
everybody.
all right. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.